In this tutorial, we'll learn how to use Microsoft Bing Web Search API in Python to perform web and image search on the web. The Bing Search API is a service provided by Microsoft Azure to search contents on the web programmatically. Some of the things you can do with Bing Search API, such as market research analysis, content discovery, SEO, data collections, and brand monitoring. Throughout this tutorial, I will cover how to create a resource group, add Bing Search API to the resource group, and how to use Bing Search API to run web and image search in Python. I'll briefly cover how to set up an Azure account, but it is highly recommended that you have an active Azure account and some experience working with Microsoft Azure and Python. Before we dive into the tutorial, let's quickly go over the Bing Search API pricing. The Bing Search API has one free tier and 10 paid tiers available. Each tier offers different performance and features. I'll be using the free tier, which includes most of the core features. With the free tier, you can make 1,000 successful request codes per month for free. Now let's dive into the tutorial. Make sure you create an Azure account by going to azure.microsoft.com. And if you already have an account, navigate to portal.azure.com and log in. For the new users out there, you'll need to create an Azure subscription before you can start using any Azure service. An Azure subscription is a building and management container that allows you to use and access Azure resources and services. And it is also where you can track usages for different Azure services. Keep in mind that you can have multiple subscriptions. To create a subscription, simply search for subscriptions and follow the instructions to create an Azure subscription. Since I already have an active Azure subscription, next we need to create a resource group. On the top, search for resource groups. A resource group is a way to organize and manage Azure services for a project or application. And in a subscription, you can have multiple resource groups for multiple projects. Now here, click on Create to create a resource group. In the project details, select the subscription that you want to use. Then give the resource group a name. I'll name my resource group Demo Resource Group. Next, you want to choose the region where resource group will get created. In most cases, you want to choose the region that is closest to you. Then click on Review and Create. Once the validation is passed, go ahead and click on Create to create the resource group. On the top, you want to search for Bing Search. And here you want to select Bing Search v7, so that's the API resource group that we'll be using to connect to the Bing Search API endpoint. So the way how you manage different API in Azure is by adding the API services to a resource group. In Microsoft Azure, an API service is considered as a resource. Now from the project details, we want to choose the resource group that we just created. Then we want to name the resource group, and here I'm going to name the resource Bing API-demo. For the pricing tier, make sure that you choose F1, which is the free tier. Then you want to make sure that you check the consent box. Now click on Review and Create. Once the validation is passed, click Create to add Bing Search API to your resource group. It may take a few minutes for the Bing Search resource to deploy, so just wait until the deployment is finished. Once the deployment is complete, click on Go to Resource to go into the Bing Search resource group that we just created. So when we deploy the Bing Search resource, we are basically creating an endpoint to the Bing Search API. Now create a blank Python script, and here I'm going to launch my VS Code. In my project folder, I already created two scripts. One is going to be an example to perform the web search, and the other script is going to be an example to perform the image search. And we'll start with the web search. So here, let me open the file. So to make a request code to Bing Search API, you will need to install a Python package that can make request codes such as requests or HTTPX Python libraries. Now let's go back to the Bing Search console and click on Keys and Endpoint. The endpoint shown here is actually just the base endpoint of the Bing Search API. But if you want to connect to the web search or image search service, you'll need to append the API version and the API service route. You can find both the web search and the image search endpoints in the description below. Now, save one of the API keys as an environment variable or to a config file to safely secure the access key. And for demonstration purpose, I'm going to save my API key in a config file. Now go back to the Python script. Now let me grab the API reference. Now to make a request code to the Bing Search service, we'll be making a web search query request. And here are all the available parameters. So some of them I don't use very often, such as answer count, which is the number of answers that you want the response to include. I won't cover all the parameters, but I'll include a link in the description so you can go through the parameters on your own based on your use case. So by default, when you make a web search request, you want to make sure that you include the query parameter, which is this parameter here. So the Q parameter is the user's search query term. The term may not be empty, so this is a required field. And you can figure out if a field is required by looking at the required column. All right, so let me scroll down. So we know we have one field that is required, which is the query parameter. And that's the only field that you need to include when you make the request code. For my personal projects, usually I like to use, I'll show you the ones that I tend to use for my personal project and for my consulting projects. The first one is going to be the count parameter, which displays the number of search results to return per response. The default is 10 and the maximum is 50. So I will set this to 50, so that way that I can save the number of response based on each request. And the next one is offset right here. So just in case, if your query returns more than 50 results, you want to use the offset parameter to skip the page or skip the results. And keep in mind that the offset parameter is zero-based offset. 0 is going to be the index of the first item. The next one is going to be market, which is this MKT parameter. So you can use the market parameter to specify the country. So here, if we look at the description, the market where the results come from. Typically, MKT is the country where the user is making the request from. However, it could be a different country if the user is not located in a country where Bing delivers the results. And you can find the available market code from this link here. And the last one is the freshness parameter. So this parameter will filter search results by the following case-insensitive age values. If you want to create contents that are created within the last 24 hours, then you can set the day freshness to 1 day or 2 days, 3 days. It's up to you. If you want to return the contents that are created within the past week or the past couple of weeks, then we set the freshness to week. Then we have month, which is going to be the last 30 days by default. You can also set the date range using this format here. So right here's an example to specify the date range. And those are the parameters that I commonly use in my Bing Search API query. Let's go back to the Python script. Let me put this side by side. All right, so in my Python script, I'm actually going to import the libraries first. And to make the request code, I'm going to be using the HTTPX library. And to load the API key from the config file, from config parser, I'm going to import the config parser class. Then we need to retrieve the API key. So here I'm going to create my config parser object. Then I'm going to read my config file. Then I'm going to load the API key. And you can also hardcode the API key, but just make sure that you rotate the API key every once in a while. Now, to make a request to create the web content, we want to make API code to the api.bing.microsoft.com/v7.0/search. Now, for the parameters, I'm going to create a dictionary called params. Now, inside the params dictionary, I'm going to include my favorite 5 parameters: query, count, offset, market, and freshness. So here, we still need to create a query that I want to search. All right, so for the query, let's say I want to search for the recent OpenAI contents. And I'll pass the query to the params dictionary. And to make the request code, at this point, everything's going to be really easy. So from the httpx.get method, I'm going to insert the web search endpoint. And here I notice that I forgot one more thing. We need to pass the API key. Now, to pass the API key, we need to create another dictionary. And I'll name the dictionary headers. Inside the headers object, we need to include this OCP APIM subscription key dictionary key. And this is how the Azure Bing Search API is going to use to identify the access key. Then we're going to pass the API key. Then we're going to take the headers object and pass that to the headers parameter in the get method. Then I'm going to include the parameters. And I'll name the output as response. Then I'll print the response object. All right, so this is everything that we need to write for the first example. Now I'm going to highlight this code block. Then I'm going to execute each line individually. All right, so from the response, we can see that we get a 200 response code. Now if I go ahead and print response.json, and that's going to return the web search results in a JSON object. So it's actually quite large. Now if you want to know the metadata of the response object, you can go back to the documentation, then go to endpoint, actually not endpoint, go to response objects. And here you can see a representation what the endpoint is going to include. And right here, actually not that one. All right, give me a second. It should be on the web search. Okay, right here, web page. And I also include the URL in the description in case if you need to reference the response metadata. Now, if you simply just want to retrieve the search result. So here, let's do this. I'm going to save the output as result set. Now, from the result set object, we can reference the web pages key, followed by main line, followed by items. And that will return the, oops, let me see. And that should return the result set from the web search. Oh, it should be value. Okay, so my mistake. It should be web pages followed by value. And this will return the result set of the web search query. Now, as I mentioned before, if you have more than 50 items, then you will need to make additional request codes to retrieve those additional items. And to do that, so here let me just quickly show you how to retrieve additional items. So what I usually do is I'll create a loop. So for example, let's say I want to retrieve the first 200 results. So I'm going to insert range. So for I in range, and from the first item to the 200 item. So here, because well, zero base index, so we need to set the destination to 201. And want to set the step to 50 to skip 50 items at a time. Then I'm going to copy this code block. So here, let me come out this code here. And I'll put a query on the top. Then I'm going to replace the 0 with the I variable. Then I'll take the get request. Now, because each get request is going to create a new set of results set. So we need to make sure that we create a list or a container or array to store the results. So here I'm going to create an empty list. Then I'll put the results set creation here. Then I'm going to append the results to the results list. Actually, it should be extend, not append, because this returns as a list. Then we can return all the results. Now, to make the image search, and it's very similar to the web search request. All right, so here I'm going to reuse some of the code. So I'm going to copy this code block here, and I'll terminate the session. And to perform the image search using Bing Query API, we need to change the endpoint first. So to perform the image search, we need to make a request code to the images search route. Now let's look at the documentation to make the image search. Most of the parameters are the same, except with the image search here. So these are the filter query parameters. Specifically for the image search, we can control the image aspect, color, freshness. This one was included in the web search query. Height, image content, image type, license. So this one's actually important. So if you want to use Bing Search API to outsource some of the free images, you want to make sure that you use the correct license. You can also set the max file size, height, and this one that I was looking for should be image type. All right, here. So you can actually specify the image type. So if you want to return GIF file, then you can set this parameter to animated GIF. If you want to search for photos only, then you can set this to photo. And if you want to search for logos, then you want to use the transparent to return only images with transparent background. Now here for the query, let's do company logos. And for the parameters, I'm going to include license, query, image type to photo, and I'll set the result size to 50, offset to 0. And here, let me grab these two lines here. And I'll change the endpoint. All right, so if I go ahead and run this code block to create the result set. Now, from the image search API, we can actually reference the value key to return the search results. Let's look at the first record to see what information we have from the image search result. All right, so right here we have the source URL, name of the image, thumbnail URL, and a couple other metadata that are tied to the image. Now, if you want to download the image, I created two functions. And you can find the source code from the link in the description below. The first function is going to be used to download the image giving a URL. And you can specify the file name. And the second function is going to be used to replace any invalid character. So let's download the first two images. So here I'm going to say for I in range. Actually, I don't need to do that. So this is already an array. Then I'm going to grab the file format and rename this to search result. You can get the file format from the encoding format key right here. In this case, the first image is going to be a PNG file. And for the file name, I'm going to use the name value. Then I'm going to concatenate the file name and file format as file name. Then I'm going to use the download image function to download the file. All right, so I'm going to run the script from scratch. And let's take a look. All right, so here's the first image, and the second image didn't get downloaded. All right, so let's troubleshoot this. Now, to troubleshoot this issue, I'm going to print the source URL and the file path. And let me run the script again. Okay, so this time it downloaded both logos. So just keep in mind that sometimes when you make request code to the source URL, where the image is located, you may get blocked sometimes. Just keep that in mind. Now, if we look at the logos, here's the logo of Microsoft, and here's the logo of Asus. So this concludes this tutorial, and I hope you guys find this tutorial useful. And feel free to post your question or leave your feedback in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to click on the like button and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.